Okay, everybody, Shabbat Shalom. So, this week I've been thinking about a certain unpleasant biblical text, the first murder, Cain killing his brother Abel. And I'll explain in a minute why I've been thinking about the first murder this week. In that narrative, God scolded Cain, saying, "What have you done? Your brother's blood cries to me from the ground." And the rabbis of our tradition noticed that in the Hebrew, the word for blood there in that narrative is actually plural. So the rabbis deduced from that not only did Cain kill his brother Abel, but he also wiped out any future generations. So when you murder someone, it's not just you're murdering that one person, you're murdering all of the potential progeny that would never come to be. Now, why am I thinking of that story at this particular moment? 80 years ago, September 29th and 30th of 1941, marked one of the most egregious tragedies during the Holocaust. Because on those days, September 29th and 30th of 1941, at a site called Babyn Yar, the Nazis murdered almost 34,000 Jews. Over the course of 2 days, almost 34,000 Jews lost their lives. So last week, Secretary of State Antony Blinken wrote the following to commemorate this horrific anniversary. As we mark the 80th anniversary of Babyn Yar, we remember that the victims were human beings. Every one of the Jews killed in those first 2 days was a man or a woman, a boy or a girl, with a full, distinct life, with loves and with hopes. And by the way, the killings at Babyn Yar continued for 2 more years. And it's thought that about a total of 100,000 people lost their lives at that site. Now, if we go back and we think about the text, the biblical text and the interpretation from our rabbis, that not just the blood of those murdered are calling out to us, but those who, of subsequent generations that will never be, are calling out to us as well, right now, on this almost just a couple weeks later than an 80th anniversary, so that we won't forget this horrific atrocity, and so that we'll learn to see the humanity of every human being and never allow something like this to happen again. In 2002, I visited the site as a young rabbi with a Federation delegation to Moldova. Now, the area looked nothing like it did during World War II, of course, but when a guide described to us what happened there, I was truly shaken to the core. So as we think about memories that are bitter to us, that are difficult, and when we think about the rise of hatred worldwide today, how should we respond? What should we do? I choose to respond with vigilance, but also with hope and with pride, because I think that we should all display our pride as Jews, even though there are those who would prefer if we did not. I want to point out that this week, the outgoing German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, visited Israel. She didn't have to, but she did. She visited Israel, and she condemned anti-Semitism, and she supported Israel's security. It's also important to note, I think, that the Jewish state was the first nation that she visited as German Chancellor 16 years ago. I think the trip and her remarks serve as an example for her country and for all of us, for the entire world, that atrocities such as the Shoah, the Holocaust, must be remembered, lest we ignore those cries of our brothers' bloods from the ground. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.